Om Jnanatmirandasya Jnananjanashravaakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupaha Kadamahyam Dati Sarvadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yudhapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sahagana Raghunathantantam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sarvana Lalita Shri Vishakam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namini Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshakarine Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayati Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gaurtushe Namaha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namaste Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Ushabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vanchakalpatarobhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. We welcome you all to the reading of Prabhupada book. We are reading the chapter entitled Uniting Two Worlds, page number 364. In the book, it's 292. All through the morning program in the temple, Rameshwara and Radha Vallabha tried to concentrate on chanting their japa and on Prabhupada's class, but all they could think of was arranging for the production of 17 volumes in 2 months. And by the time they met with the press workers, they had become convinced it could be done. It was as if some mystical power was going to descend. Somehow or other, it could be done. So they presented the plan and convinced the other co-workers. It can be done, Rameshwar said later, talking with Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada replied, "What? But there were some conditions," Rameshwar said. For the Bengali editing to go smoothly, the editors would have to be able to regularly consult Srila Prabhupada. Immediately, Prabhupada agreed, adding that he was prepared to stay in Los Angeles as long as necessary to ensure that they met the 2 month deadline. Another condition Rameshwar raised was that the artist would be working as quickly as humanly possible, but the paintings might not be of the best quality. A blind uncle is better than no uncle, Srila Prabhupada said. When Rameshwar mentioned that the artist would have many technical questions, Prabhupada agreed to make time to answer them. He also agreed that photographs of Indian holy places connected with Chaitanya Leela could be used to supplement the paintings. After the meeting with Srila Prabhupada, Rameshwar and Radha Vallabha felt that they had a chance. They left Srila Prabhupada's room running down the stairs. The marathon was on. Although Srila Prabhupada had said he would stay in Los Angeles, he soon decided to follow his original travel plans. Feeling compelled to see to the welfare of his disciples around the country, he left on a tour of 13 iskcon centers in the United States and Canada. Less than a month later, however, he returned to Los Angeles to see if his press workers were keeping their vow of producing 17 volumes in 2 months. Srila Prabhupada was pleased with the sincerity of his disciples. 17 books in 2 months he had asked them to produce. And they, rather than try to explain to him why this was impossible, had taken the order so seriously that they could not conceive of rejecting or changing or modifying it. Instead of modifying the order, they had modified their lives. They had gone beyond the realm of routine work into the realm of extraordinary effort. As a result, both they and Prabhupada felt great satisfaction. As Prabhupada said, it was all an arrangement for the satisfaction of Lord Chaitanya and the previous acharyas. Srila Prabhupada decided to take another US tour, visiting Laguna Beach and San Diego, and then going on to Dallas. From there, he would visit New Orleans and the nearby iskcon farm in Mississippi, then on to Detroit, Toronto, Boston, and New York, eventually traveling to Europe and India. From Prabhupada's point of view, his touring was imperative for spreading Krishna consciousness. As he had said in his arrival address at Berkeley during his last tour, I am traveling all over the world twice, thrice in a year. My duty is to see that my disciples who have accepted me as Guru may not fall down. That is my anxiety. Prabhupada's concern was for his disciples, but also for all people, distressed by the fallen and ignorant state of humanity, specifically in the West. He wanted to help the English speaking world as his spiritual master had ordered. This had been his spirit 2 years ago in Calcutta, when he had risen from his sick bed and flown to London to take part in the Rath Yatra. This was his great desire to preach in the West. The people were so strongly under the grip of speculative philosophies, denying God and glorifying sense enjoyment. The mass of people would not easily change their ignorant ways, but if he could make only one person a pure devotee, he said, then his work would be successful. Prabhupada would work intensively with his important India projects for a few months, but then would always return to the West to again tour and preach. Both were required, developing his projects in India and touring the West. Detroit, August 1975. Alfred Ford, the great grandson of Henry Ford, had become attracted to Krishna consciousness through meeting some of Srila Prabhupada's disciples in Detroit and through reading Bhagavad Gita as it is. He had adopted the principles of Krishna consciousness, begun regularly chanting 16 rounds, and was now Srila Prabhupada's initiated disciple Ambarish. Today, Ambarish was at the airport, behind the wheel of a white Lincoln Continental limousine, waiting to meet Srila Prabhupada. On seeing Srila Prabhupada approach, Ambarish got out of the driver's seat and offered obeisances. He opened the back door of the limousine for Srila Prabhupada, shut it, and returned to his seat just like a menial chauffeur. We devotees also have a car, said Prabhupada as they drove away, but we are going to the temple and distributing books with it. Anything can be used for Krishna. Here is a rich man's son, Alfred Ford. We are giving him a little spiritual teaching and he is happy. Another of Srila Prabhupada's Detroit disciples was Elizabeth Ruther, now Lekha Shravanti Devidasi, the daughter of labor leader Walter Ruther. Ambarish told Prabhupada that the Fords and the Ruthers had been enemies, but now two of their descendants were peacefully working together in Krishna consciousness. Srila Prabhupada was pleased with the humility of these two disciples, and while he gave them some special status, he did not dote on the fact that they were from such famous families. Ambarish and Lekha Shravanti saw themselves as humble servants of the Vaishnavas. On the way to the temple, Prabhupada's car passed a large modern building displaying flags of many nations and a large sign, World Headquarters, Ford. One of the devotees turned to Ambarish and asked, is this where you work? From the back seat, Prabhupada spoke up. No, he's the proprietor. As they passed by a big urban redevelopment project, Prabhupada asked, what is this? This is known as Detroit's Renaissance Center, said Ambarish. They will never have a renaissance, Prabhupada replied. The Detroit temple was located in an old brick house with a temple room in the third floor attic. The lease was soon due to run out, and Govardhan, the temple president, was looking for a new place. He showed Prabhupada photos of likely buildings, one of them a mansion of the late auto industry millionaire Lawrence Fisher. The place was probably too expensive, Govardhan said, and was located in a bad neighborhood. But Prabhupada was interested. In fact, whatever the devotees cited as bad, Prabhupada would say was actually good, or at least could easily be rectified. As for the high crime rate in the area, he said, you will have nothing to fear. Just chant Hare Krishna and distribute prasadam. Invite all the neighborhood people, thieves, and rascals to take prasadam and chant, and you won't have any thefts. Devotees emphasized that Detroit was the crime capital of the US, and the the poor slum area where the mansion was located was known for drug trafficking, robberies, and murders. But Srila Prabhupada repeated that they should not be afraid. I lived in the Bowery, he said, and it described how the bums used to urinate on his front door and lie across the doorway. But when he would come to enter the building, they would get up and say, "Yes, sir, come on, sir. Get the place," Prabhupada said, and chant Hare Krishna there 24 hours a day. If a thief comes, we will say, "Yes, first take prasadam and then take whatever you want." What do we have? Srila Prabhupada went to see the mansion with Govardhan, Ambarish, and several GBC men. They were met by the owner and a lady who introduced herself as a real estate agent. As the owner guided them on a tour, Prabhupada came to like the estate even more. The palatial building was situated on 4 acres, surrounded by a high stone wall. There were gardens and walkways, now in disrepair, as well as fountains and a swimming pool. Some of the devotees thought the place gaudy, with its extravagant 1920s decor, but Srila Prabhupada saw the great potential. As soon as he entered the vestibule and saw the ornate Italian tiles and marble archways, he began to smile. The group entered the lobby, its high ceiling covered with classically sculptured leaves, roses, and hand painted plaster flowers. Next, they entered the ballroom with its marble floor and high vaulted ceiling painted to resemble an early evening blue sky with clouds and stars. Special lighting gave the effect of natural starlight. At the end of the hall, three marble arches exactly resembled the design Prabhupada had given for the deity altars in his temples. Three altars could be installed there and the ballroom made into a temple with very little renovation. Prabhupada did not comment to the owner on the ballroom's suitability, but to the devotees it was obvious. The tour then proceeded to the boat well, an indoor water garage capable of holding several yachts. The boat well opened into a channel which opened into a nearby Detroit River. Prabhupada mentioned that the devotees could get a boat for the preaching. As Prabhupada and his entourage entered one gorgeous room after another, they saw the many carved stone columns, hand painted floor, and wall tiles from Italy and Greece, and ceilings ornamented with gold-leafed figures. Rare antique crystal chandeliers adorned many of the rooms. There were living rooms, library rooms, and a dining room, a billiards room, a music room, two master bedrooms, other bedrooms, all extravaganzas. Each room is worth the entire price, said Prabhupada privately to the devotees. The owner spoke of Mayan, Moorish, Spanish, Greek, and Italian influences and pointed out that the two hand carved spiral columns in the dining room were salvaged from an ancient European palace. Wherever Prabhupada looked, he saw opulence, an indoor marble fountain, a wall of iridescent tiles, hand-painted cornices. Even the large bathrooms were extraordinary, with glamorous imported tiles and gold-plated accents. The introductory tour completed, Prabhupada, his followers, the owner, and the real estate agent sat together at an umbrella-covered patio table by the swimming pool. Already, Srila Prabhupada had mentioned to his disciples that the owner should donate the building for iskcon's missionary purposes, and he had told Brahmananda Swami to make the request. Since the owner had not mentioned the price, Prabhupada spoke up. "So we are beggars," he began. He was serious, and yet he spoke with an air of humor. Ambarish and Upendra hid their faces in embarrassment. "We have no money," Prabhupada continued boldly. "Therefore, we are asking you, please give us this building." The owner glanced incredulously at his real estate agent and then laughed nervously. "It's out of the question," he said. "I can't do that." The agent was also taken aback and upset. "He can't do that," she whispered. "I can't give it to you," explained the owner, "because I have taken a loss in maintaining this property. So I have to make my money back. This property represents a major part of my income." Then Shilpa said, "How much do you want?" Well, the man replied, "I have to get at least 350,000 dollars. None of the devotees dared say anything. Prabhupada thought for a moment and then said, "We will give you 300,000 dollars cash." "I'll have to think about it," the man replied. The real estate agent got to her feet, saying that a transaction like this is usually not done straight to the owner. But Prabhupada ignored her and spoke with the owner about how lovely the mansion was. Prabhupada then got up and took a short walk in the garden with his men. Govardhan asked Prabhupada if he had liked the place, and Prabhupada said, "Yes. Who would not like such a building?" "Ambarish doesn't like it," said Govardhan. "Oh, Ambarish said he thought the mansion was Maya." "Yes," said Prabhupada, "but Maya is also Krishna. We can use anything in Krishna's service." Leaving the garden path and returning to their cars, Prabhupada asked Ambarish, "So is this possible?" Yes, Prabhupada, this is possible. As soon as they returned to the temple, Ambarish and Lekha Shravanti conferred. Her inheritance was limited, but she was able to give $125,000. Ambarish had to come up with the balance. The next day, the owner came to see Srila Prabhupada. The man was accompanied by two women, and they all appeared a little intoxicated. He had come to say that he accepted the offer. Prabhupada smiled and reaffirmed his intention to buy. Afterward, Srila Prabhupada openly showed his blissfulness about the purchase. Just see, he said, I don't have one penny, yet I offered him $300,000 cash, and now Krishna has provided the money. As Prabhupada had told the estate owner, I am a sannyasi, I have no money. And after collecting $300,000 from his disciples, he still had no money. Within a few days, he left for Toronto, taking nothing for himself. Everything was Krishna's, to be used in Krishna's service. Yes. Usha Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. In Toronto, Srila Prabhupada's North America tour was suddenly interrupted. A telegram from Tejas in Delhi announced that if Prabhupada wanted an interview with Indira Gandhi, he would have to come at once. The telegram contained no details, and his secretary was unable to reach Delhi temple by phone. But Prabhupada didn't need to hear anything more. When an auspicious opportunity arose, he said, a devotee should act at once. Harikesha planned the trip so they could stop in Montreal overnight. From Montreal, they would fly to Paris, where Prabhupada could rest before going on to Delhi. As word of Prabhupada's imminent departure spread, several devotees in Toronto tried to see him for last instructions about their projects. Rameshwara also phoned from Los Angeles, pressing Harikesha to ask Prabhupada to list of last-minute editorial questions regarding the fifth canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. The questions, however, concerning the Bhagavatam's explanation of the structure of the universe, Prabhupada rejected as unintelligent. He ordered the BBT to simply print books as they were. Not only was the prospect of meeting with Prime Minister Gandhi, Prabhuji, kindly scroll up, prompting Prabhupada's return to India, but so were his uncompleted projects, especially Hare Krishna land in Bombay. Brahmananda Swami said that he thought Prabhupada had been looking for such a chance to end his Western tour and get back into personally managing the projects in India. Prabhupada had just dictated a letter to Surabhi in Brindavana expressing disappointment that things could not get done without him. Uh, Prabhuji, kindly scroll up. You are all simply writing letters to me. Without my personal presence there, you cannot do anything. Simply correspondence. Anyway, be careful. There is no underhanded dealing in this transaction, purchasing land. It is very much risky, so be careful. Please send me a regular report of the Bombay construction. I am very much anxious and will be glad to receive your regular report. New Delhi, August 22, 1975. At 9:15 in the morning, Srila Prabhupada and several of his leading disciples arrived at the Prime Minister's home, where they were confronted by a formidable security check. 2 days before, the Prime Minister of Bangladesh had been assassinated, and Mrs. Gandhi was rumored to be the next. Armed soldiers therefore surrounded her residence. The guards at the outer gate decided that the foreigners could not go in. Srila Prabhupada alone could enter. While one guard opened the gate, another ushered Srila Prabhupada into a car, which carried him to the Prime Minister's front door. Meanwhile, the devotees waited in anxiety by the outer gate. Always some disciples would accompany Prabhupada wherever he went. His disciples worried, almost like doting parents, that he might need their assistance. In tiny cramped handwriting, Srila Prabhupada had noted down in small address book a list of points he wanted to discuss with Mrs. Gandhi. 1. Granting immigration for 500 foreigners. 2. All MPs initiated Brahmanas. 3. Sanjaya the king. 4. Close slaughterhouses. 5. Chanting. 6. Meat eaters at home. No public meat eating. 7. Prostitution punishable. 8. No religious group except Bhagavad Gita as it is. Prabhuji, kindly scroll up. All government officers must join Kirtan at least twice a day. 10. Support Krishna consciousness all over the world. The most pressing item was at the head of the list. Mrs. Gandhi should grant permanent visas to Prabhupada's Western disciples in India. Just a week Just a few weeks before, some of the foreign devotees in Mayapur had been asked to leave the country. For years, Prabhupada had been asking for permanent visas whenever he met governors, members of parliament, or other men of influence. Devotees were constantly being asked to leave the country to renew their 6-month visas. The travel costs incurred and the disruption of the devotee services seriously hampered iskcon's work in India. Therefore, Prabhupada wanted Indira Gandhi to sanction up 500 foreign disciples to stay permanently in India. The other points of Srila Prabhupada's list were scriptural directions of how the Prime Minister could make her leadership Krishna conscious in the spirit of great Rajajis of Vedic age. These were the same tenets of God consciousness leadership he preached wherever he went. And he had deep conviction that if the world's leaders would apply them, an era of peace, prosperity, and happiness would dawn. Indira Gandhi had a tendency toward authoritative control, so she should exercise it in terms of Vedic directions. Then her rule could become most effective and beneficial. A government official opened the door to Srila Prabhupada's car, ushered him into the house, and brought him before the Prime Minister. As Prabhupada entered the room, Mrs. Gandhi stood up. Although she greeted him cordially and offered him a seat, he could immediately detect that she was distracted, fearful for her life. She openly admitted it and added that this was not therefore a good time for their meeting. Prabhupada felt that she would have preferred not to meet at all, but was allowing it only because she had promised. Her agreeing to see him, he felt, was an indication that she had some attraction for spiritual life. But he understood that on this visit, at least, he could not introduce the extensive advice he had been contemplating. Mrs. Gandhi complimented Srila Prabhupada on the work he was doing all over the world. They are good boys, he replied, and he asked if she could arrange for permanent visas. She agreed, but again mentioned her present anxiety. They soon ended their talk, and Srila Prabhupada left. A few days later, while still in New Delhi, Srila Prabhupada received a letter from Rameshwar. The BBT in Los Angeles was miraculously fulfilling Srila Prabhupada's order to publish 17 volumes in 2 months. The composers, editors, artists, and workers had ecstatically finished their marathon on schedule. When the first books had come back from the printers and had been offered on the altar of Rukmani Dwarkadhish, the devotees had cried in transcendental bliss, chanting again and again the mantras of Srila Prabhupada. They were feeling the potency of the order of their spiritual master and seeing themselves as instruments in carrying out what they had once seemed an impossible request.
Thank you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, thank you.
Ashok Prabhuji. Ashoka Neja Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandvat Pranam. Today, our composer finished the last volumes of Chaitanya Charitamrita. By Wednesday next week, August 20th, all volumes will be at the printer. Now they are just starting to compose the fifth canto, and the entire canto will definitely be at the printer by Vyasa Puja Day. After promising delivery of books by October at the latest, the letter was signed by about 60 devotees. Your unworthy servants at iskcon Press. On their behalf, Rameshwara stated, we have lost all desire to do anything except be engaged in producing and distributing your transcendental books by the millions in every village, in every town and village. Srila Prabhupada wrote back the next day from Delhi, regarding your desire for all 12 cantos, you will get it, rest assured. Your so much ardent desire will be fulfilled by Krishna. On August 21st, the appearance day of Lord Balarama, Rameshwara sent Srila Prabhupada a telegram. By the mercy of Lord Balaram Nityananda, the last volume of Chaitanya Charitamrita is leaving today for the printer. By your mercy and divine order, it is done. Although Srila Prabhupada traveled on to Vrindavan, the devotees were able to dispatch advance copies of all 15 volumes to him by his 80th birthday on August 31st. Just after Prabhupada observed the ceremony in the temple, a devotee arrived in Vrindavan with the final 6 volumes of Chaitanya Charitamrita. With great relish and satisfaction, Srila Prabhupada examined the books. He was pleased with the artwork and quickly became absorbed in reading the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya. He felt so inspired, he remarked to the devotees in Vrindavan that he was thinking of stopping all touring and just staying in Vrindavan and translating. The reciprocation of the devotees as iskcon Press was so sincere that it increased Srila Prabhupada's desire to reciprocate with them. He wrote to My dear Rameshwara and company, you have taken seriously the publishing and also the distribution of these books, and that is the success of our mission. You have taken seriously this work, and I know that my Guru Maharaj is pleased with you because he wanted this. So, by this endeavor, you will all go back home, back to Godhead. In a few short years, Srila Prabhupada had seen the publishing facilities of iskcon evolve from the small hand-operated A.B. Dick printing press at his first seafront temple in New York to the sophisticated BBT operation in Los Angeles, equipped with the latest computer typesetting machines and staffed with a devoted, hard-working crew of managers, editors, proofreaders, artists, photographers, designers, layout artists, and photo technicians. Whereas in India, before he had gone to the West, Srila Prabhupada had struggled alone for months to organize the printing of a single volume of his Srimad Bhagavatam translations. He now saw his loving disciples rushing his manuscripts into print as fast as he could produce them. Moreover, they were simultaneously translating them into a variety of languages all over the world. Vrindavan, September 13, 1975. On Radhashtami, Srila Prabhupada laid the cornerstone for a large Gurukula building adjacent to the Krishna Balaram temple. He said that when it was built, the devotees should accommodate 500 students there from all over the world. Through the gorgeous temple, the guest house, the soon the Gurukula, the Srila Prabhupada intended to draw as many people as possible to the shelter of Krishna in Vrindavan. For this end, he was willing to sacrifice everything, even his peaceful writing. And for this end, he also demanded his disciple to sacrifice. Constant travel, Srila Prabhupada said, was becoming more and more inconvenient. One reason for his return to India. But he was by no means stopping. Unless he traveled, his movement could not remain vital and healthy. So he was prepared, despite the inconvenience, to continue touring. Disciples never stopped inviting him to travel, and recently Pushta Krishna Swami had asked him to come to South Africa. When Prabhupada agreed, Pushta Krishna had quickly arranged 10 festivals and other engagements in Durban and Johannesburg, covering a period of 3 weeks in October. Devotees on the predominantly Hindu island in Mauritius had also requested Prabhupada to visit, mentioning that the Prime Minister wanted to meet him. Prabhupada agreed, leaving Vrindavana, making brief stops in Delhi, Ahmedabad, Bombay, and he was off to Africa. Mauritius, October 24. Prabhupada had come to Mauritius to meet with the Prime Minister. As a friendly gesture, The Prime Minister had sent a chauffeured car for Srila Prabhupada's use during his stay. One day, Prabhupada was leaving to take a ride in the countryside, but as he was about to enter the car on the right side, Swami suggested, Srila Prabhupada, come to the other side, it is safer, and Prabhupada complied. For half an hour, they rode through the beautiful countryside, past sugarcane fields, mountains, and the ocean. At one point, they stopped and walked along a cliff beside the sea. When they returned to the car, Brahmananda Swami opened the right side door and Prabhupada said, no, the other side is safer, just as Pushta Krishna had previously suggested. A few minutes later, as Prabhupada's black Citron was rounding a curve, a Volkswagen suddenly appeared, heading towards them in the same lane. Prabhupada was seated behind Pushta Krishna and Brahmananda was seated behind the driver. The moment before the Volkswagen had appeared, Srila Prabhupada had sat up cross-legged, planting his cane against the floor of the car to support himself. As the
Thank you,
Volkswagen,
Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Pushpakanna Mataji.
Pranam Guruji. As the Volkswagen rushed towards them, the chauffeur braked, steering to the left, but the Volkswagen swerved in the same direction. There was a head-on collision. Pushta Krishna had hit the windshield, cracking the glass. Driver's head also slammed against the glass, and his face was covered with blood. In the back seat, Srila Prabhupada remained sitting, his face set gravely. Brahmananda, in shock, suddenly embraced Prabhupada as if to protect him. Although the danger was already past, Brahmananda then jumped out of the car to try and flag down a motorist, and Pushta Krishna got out and opened the back door, where he found Srila Prabhupada with his face bruised, the leg bleeding, and the piece of glass scattered on at his feet. Prabhupada did not speak or indicate how he felt. Suddenly, Pushta Krishna realized that the car, disabled on a curve, was in a dangerous position. So he joined Brahmananda in the road to caution motorists and try to get someone to stop. The Citroën and the Volkswagen was totaled, and man and woman in Volkswagen were both injured. Motorists soon stopped, and when the injured persons had received help, Prabhupada and the devotees got into car and rode back to the temple. Harikesha was waiting anxiously, wondering why Srila Prabhupada was so late. When suddenly Prabhupada entered, walking with stiffy, saying nothing. When Harikesha saw all three injured, he cried out, "My God, what happened? What happened?" But Srila Prabhupada just walked to his quarters, sat down, silent. A devotee brought bandages for the obvious injuries: Prabhupada's chin, hand, leg, and Pushta Krishna's Brahmananda's head. Srila Prabhupada had said nothing since the accident. Finally, he spoke, कि आपकी क्लेशा आसा देहा, and he translated, as soon as he accepted the material body, there were so many difficulties. We were sitting peacefully in the car and the next moment crashed. He talked briefly about the collision, and Brahmananda Swami told how just before the accident, Prabhupada had braced himself with his cane, preventing perhaps more serious injuries. Get some resin and turmeric, Prabhupada said, mix it together with a bit of lay and heat it. Prabhupada was again speaking Bhagavata philosophy and practical medical remedies. It remained a frightened event. However, the Prabhupada asked the devotees to have kirtana. Krishna has saved them. He said, considering that both cars had been destroyed, the injuries were negligible. Prabhupada said, like a battle hero, anointed in 3 places with the yellow poultice. When Harikesha read aloud from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Disappearance of Haridasa Thakur. The Srila Prabhupada began talking about the danger of traveling, questioning the advisability of his extensive touring. His mission of translating Srimad Bhagavatam and other Vaishnava's literature was too important for him to be risking his life traveling in automobile. He had been considering a visit to Nairobi before returning to India, but now he said he would cancel his visit. He said he had never wanted to leave Bombay, but because they had made so many arrangements in Africa, he had come. Perhaps the accident was a sign that he should go back to India. The
Thank
next
you,
morning,
Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Vijay Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu Dandat Pranam. The next morning, with Brahmananda Swami and Pushpa Krishna Swami hobbling along, Prabhupada went on his morning walk as usual, although he favored his injured knee. Again, he discussed with his disciples whether he should go on to Nairobi or return to India. Chaivana, the president of iskcon Nairobi, argued that Prabhupada should go to Nairobi. The devotees there were expecting it, he said, and they had made arrangements. If Prabhupada cancelled now, he would probably not come back for a long time. Others, however, argued that there was no question of asking Srila Prabhupada to keep going now. After this traumatic accident, he should go directly to Bombay. Prabhupada heard both opinions, but he was more affected by the consideration of disappointing the devotees in Nairobi than of recapturing after the accident. He decided to go to Nairobi. But after only a few days in Nairobi, Prabhupada becomes anxious to return to India. Reports were reaching him about mismanagement in Bombay and about building materials being stolen from the property through a conspiracy involving the workers, the storekeeper, and the chowkidar. When Srila Prabhupada heard this, he became so morose, he stopped translating. He even stopped eating. Although thousands of miles from Bombay, he was feeling the pain more than any of the devotees there. Many of them, in fact, were not even aware that the theft was taking place. When Brahmananda Swami asked Prabhupada why he was not eating, he replied, "How can I eat when my money is being stolen?" Bombay, November 1. Srila Prabhupada's plane from Nairobi arrived in Bombay at 1 a.m. Yet even at such an early hour, he was greeted at the temple by a gathering of intimate life members, disciples, and even some of the tenants on the land. When the group followed him to his room, he confirmed that he had had a serious accident, and he even showed them the scar on his knee. He said he was relieved to be back. In a letter from Bombay, he wrote, "The accident was very disastrous, but still Krishna said, perhaps I may stay here for some time for finishing our temple construction on this land." Srila Prabhupada immediately got to work. He fired the engineer whom he held responsible for the poor, slow work and stolen building materials. At first, Prabhupada had tried to avoid hiring a construction company by having Surabhi oversee the whole project, assigning work to various subcontractors, but that was not possible. Srila Prabhupada wanted a change, but there was no clear alternative. "We have come to Krishna consciousness for a life of eternal bliss," he said to Surabhi. "But instead of eternal bliss, I am suffering eternal anxiety." He appealed to Surabhi, Giriraj, and the others to do something. One day, a life member, a construction engineer, visited the site and told Srila Prabhupada the temple and hotel could easily be completed in 6 months. Prabhupada then berated Surabhi, who said that 6 months' time was not enough. Now I am nowhere, thought Surabhi. I am losing my service. Then another life member, Mr. Om Prakash Dir, the chief engineer with ECC, one of India's largest, most reputed construction companies, came to the Sunday feast and examined the work. Appalled at the poor quality, he said that after 2 or 3 years, it would fall apart. Giriraj, impressed with the idea of hiring Bombay's biggest, most competent construction firm, spoke with Prabhupada, who was also interested. At first, Surabhi resented that the work was being taken out of his hands, but also meeting with Mr. Dev, he also liked the proposed change. The contract was made with ECC and Mr. Dev presented a progress chart detailing each phase of the work and showing when it would be completed. Srila Prabhupada was pleased with their professional methods despite the higher cost. Now the work would be done by done by professionally and quickly and as quickly as possible, and this was what mattered most.
Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Lalita Prishta Gopi Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Dhananam Pranam Babaji. Prabhupada stayed for the greater part of November, and the construction progressed quickly. There was no question of cutting corners to save a little money. Prabhupada explained to Surabhi, the temple had to be a beautiful jewel so that people from all over India would want to come and stay. During the Vrindavan construction, Prabhupada had emphasized, why so much? Why not just simple? But now he was stressing, why not more? The temple should be opulent and ornate, with marble everywhere. The hotel should be the finest, with beautifully furnished rooms and an elegant restaurant, and the air-conditioned theater building should be one of the best in Bombay. Why not marble on the floors? Asked Prabhupada, speaking of the hotel rooms. It's going to be very expensive, said Surabhi. Don't worry about the money. Prabhupada said, can you help me to scroll down, please? Can we put marble on the floor? Then do it. Surabhi did it, but try to save money by putting a cheaper stone in the hotel hallways. When Prabhupada saw it, he was displeased. It should have been all marble, he said. Funds for the Bombay construction came primarily from the sale of the books in America, and Srila Prabhupada was regularly receiving Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Reports on November 18, Rameshvara sent a telegram with some of the good news. 1 million copies of BTG just printed. Devotees gone wild promised to distribute all within 1 month. Spanish just off the press, bringing hundreds of millions to your Lord's feet, or possible by your mercy only. When the temple president from iskcon Denver wrote asking about starting a jewelry business, Srila Prabhupada wrote back disapproving. Why are they doing business? This creates a bad atmosphere. We should only do one business, that is book selling. That's all. As soon as you become karmis after business, then spiritual life becomes damaged. This business should not be encouraged anymore. Doing business and not Sankirtan. This is not at all good. Sankirtan is very good, but the hostas aren't conditioned can do other business only if they give at least 50%. But Sankirtan is the best business. Prabhupada envisioned that book distribution could not only finance Mumbai construction but could also support his even more ambitious plans for Mayapur. He approved a plan whereby all the various BBTs would contribute a minimum of 10% of their yearly income towards the construction of iskcon's international projects in India, especially the planned Mayapur city, with its towering temple of understanding. Such cooperation among the BBTs in different countries would help keeping the growing Krishna consciousness movement unified. Book distribution was good business and it was the best preaching. It was Prabhupada's formula, American money combined with India's spiritual culture, and he encouraged Ramesh Mara to motivate the Sankirtan in the USA in accordance with this principle.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Shamala Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. America has the money, so this is cooperation between the blind man and lame man. It will make good relations between India and America. The next chance I have for meeting with Indira Gandhi, I shall inform her about how much foreign exchange we are sending. After receiving your encouraging assurance that as book distribution increases, the amount BBT sends will also increase. We are now going to attempt a Kurukshetra project and the Jagannath Puri project. For the time being, we are spending in India, but eventually we will spend everywhere. This will greatly enhance the American spiritual position. Always remain dependent on Guru and Krishna, and your progress will always be assured. Ever since the BBT press marathon in the summer of 1975, the press had continued to keep up with Srila Prabhupada's writing. A sweet transcendental competition had developed between Prabhupada, his press, and the book distributors. In November of 1975, Prabhupada had returned to one of the leading book distributors. The BBT says that they are publishing at the speed of my translating and that you will distribute at the pace of publishing. That's nice, but still I am ahead in my translation work. They owe me now the 6th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. I am working already on the 7th canto. In recent months, however, Srila Prabhupada's literary output had been diminishing, mostly because of his involvement in management. Actually, the word translating is incomplete in describing Srila Prabhupada's writing. Translating involved only the verses and synonyms, but Prabhupada's deepest meditations, what he referred to as his personal ecstasies, were his Bhaktivedanta ecstasies. Okay. Were his Bhaktivedanta purports. Composing the purports as well as translating the verses came best when he could think about them throughout the day, not just when he turned on his dictating machine at 1 a.m. He was translating the extremely grave and complex Vedic knowledge into a modern context, thus making it understandable to Western readers. And it was a great demanding task to best speak to the people of the world through his Srimad Bhagavatam writings. Srila Prabhupada required a very conducive situation. After the Mayapur festival, therefore, he formulated an itinerary that in about a month's time would bring him to Hawaii. There he expected to find an atmosphere beneficial for his literary work. Hawaii, May 3rd, 1976. After brief visits in several Indian cities, as well as stops in Melbourne, Auckland, and Fiji, Srila Prabhupada arrived in Hawaii on schedule. Immediately, he began to increase his writings. He had been in Honolulu about a week when he announced one morning, walking along Wakaiki Beach, that he expected to finish that night the last purport to the seventh canto. When Hari Sauri expressed his happiness to hear this, Prabhupada replied, "Oh, I can finish very quickly, but I have to present it for your understanding. It requires deep thought very carefully to present it for the common man."
Thank you,
Immediately,
Mataji.
Prabhupada, Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Neha Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. He had been in Honolulu about a week when he announced one morning walking along the
Yes.
Waikiki.
Immediately, Prabhupada turned to the eighth canto.
Okay, yes. Immediately, Prabhupada turned to the eighth canto, beginning with a prayer. First of all, let me offer my humble, respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master, His Divine Grace, Sri Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada. Prabhupada explained that his spiritual master had instructed him at Radhakund in 1935 to stress book production more than temple construction. He had followed that instruction, beginning with his starting Back to Godhead magazine in 1944, and in 1958 he had begun Srimad Bhagavatam. As soon as he had published 3 volumes of Srimad Bhagavatam in India, he had started for the US in August 1965. Prabhupada said he was making the Bhagavatam understandable for the common man. This did not mean his writings were lacking in substance. They were pure substance. But in the essential spirit, Prabhuji, could you please scroll? But in the essential spirit of the starting Back to Godhead magazine in 1944, but in the essential spirit of the Bhagavatam itself, Prabhupada was omitting anything extraneous and distracting, selecting from the commentaries of previous acharyas whatever would best impel his readers to pure devotional service. Overwhelmingly, those university scholars who seriously read Prabhupada's books appreciated the faithful quality of his parampara rendering. Reviews came from all over the world. For those who have no access to the Sanskrit language, these books convey in superb manner the message of the Bhagavatam. Dr. Alaka Hejib, Department of Sanskrit and Indian Studies, Harvard University. It is a deeply felt, powerfully conceived, and beautifully explained work. I don't know whether to praise more this translation of the Bhagavad Gita, its daring method of explanation, or the endless fertility of its ideas. I have never seen any other work on the Gita with such an important voice and style. It will occupy a significant place in the intellectual and ethical life of modern man for a long time to come. Dr. Shaligram Shukla, Professor of Linguistics, Georgetown University. For the first time, we possess a readily accessible edition for this great religious classic that will provide opportunity for scholars in Indian literature and followers of the Krishna consciousness tradition alike to compare the original text with a modern English translation and become acquainted with the deeper spiritual meaning of this work through the learned commentary of Sri Bhaktivedanta. Anyone who gives a close reading to the commentary will sense that here, as in his other works, Sri Bhaktivedanta has combined a healthy mixture of the fervent devotion and aesthetic sensitivity of a devotee and the intellectual rigor of a textual scholar. At no point does the author allow the intended meaning of the text to be eclipsed by the promotion of a particular doctrinal persuasion. These exquisitely wrought volumes will be a welcome addition to the libraries of all persons who are committed to the study of Indian spirituality and religious literature, whether their interests are sparked by the motivations of the scholar, the devotee, or the general reader. Dr. J. Bruce Long, Department of Asian Studies, Cornell University. This English edition, translated by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, is superb. It contains the original Sanskrit and Bengali verses with their English transliterations, synonyms, translations, and elaborate purports, easily bearing testimony to the author's profound knowledge of the subject. Dr. O.B.L. Kapoor, Emeritus Chairman and Professor, Department of Philosophy, Government Postgraduate College, Gyanpur, India.
Thank you,
Prabhu,
Mataji. We'll stop here. Hare Krishna. Continue from the next page in the next class. Srila